we tried something. Let me see if it actually worked. So, for anybody just tuning in, we have completed rounds 1 and 2 of the 2024 New Year's Pixelborn tournament. And we are now waiting another couple minutes for the next round to come up here. And then while we wait, we can talk a little bit more about the deck and where we're at so far. In playing RL, how often do you miss a card that's in your hand? I mean, the more you practice with paper, the less that you'll misplay. Like the mechanical actions of paper versus the mechanical actions of playing the online definitely do matter quite a bit. So there's, with this new steel variant, and with the other sort of flavors that steel can be on, you know, there's some that are running less Ursula, because I don't necessarily think Ursula is incredible in this deck. It's okay. I think this deck plays better as more of a tempo deck and less of sort of the big control deck. The Ursula isn't as good because they don't have any real songs to sing with it. Whereas we have the option of singing Be Prepared. It gives us more flexibility in Ruby than it does with Steel. So I've seen more Elsas. I've seen, you know, things like Cindy or just the other big finishers. But I think this deck utilizes Yzma a lot better than the Ruby one. I don't think the Ruby deck really leverages Yzma very well. This one, it sort of needs it as an answer to, like, opposing Ursulas or opposing large resist things, maybe Big Cindy, you know, sometimes like an opposing Elsa, to be able to shuffle it back in because they don't really have as much targeted removal for big bodies. But this deck, the Blue Fairy, is really the key here. Because it allows you to favorably interact with, say, Surfer Mini. Even if you don't attack it directly, and you maybe just quest and let them decide if they want to take out your fairy. If they do, great. It makes them vulnerable immediately to the Let the Storm Rage on. You just sing this with your Maleficent or whatever, draw a card, kill their Surfer. Boom. Problem solved. They wasted their 2 lore gain attacking a Blue Fairy, and then they just get to blast it. If they don't deal with it, you might gain 3 or 4 lore off of it, and then by the time that you're playing, say, Sad Beast, or Tinkerbell, or even Elsa and Yzma in this case as well, you're drawing cards off of it because they're all Floodborns. So if you don't deal with the Blue Fairy, it can be very, very backbreaking for a 2-drop, especially one with Evasive. So this card is very scary. But it just doesn't work without Sad Beast. I tried so hard to find a spot to fit it in here. You know, it's pretty easy to just be like, okay, we cut the Kuzcos, like we shave this down a little bit, run the Blue Fairy. There are just not enough good Floodborns to really bother putting it in this deck, is what the conclusion ended up being. So, it looks like maybe a couple more minutes for time and round, and then we'll jump into our next game here. I'm mostly happy with these numbers as far as the deck is concerned. I think that the Olafs could probably be Minnie Mouse, because Minnie Mouse is probably better. I erred on the side of let's present more purple cards than red cards. How would I change if I wasn't expecting any steel? Like, if it was just mirror stuff? Probably not by much, actually. It's really interesting, because the Elsas are still very good in other matchups, too. And the Tremaine, now that people are more familiar with it, they play around it a lot more, especially online. I mean, they might not necessarily play around it as much in paper, but it's pretty easy to play around it with how many 1-3s are being played right now. So as long as you're cognizant of that and you make sure that whatever you're trying to protect has some fodder with it, then the Lady Tremaines aren't quite as scary. So the lists that are running really heavy on Tremaines, really heavy on Maleficent Dragons, I don't think necessarily... I would not cut the Ursulas, no. I still think that this is a better card than, say, Spellbook. This sort of occupies that Spellbook slot a lot, and I think Ursula is just a better card than almost any other that you can be casting on 7 in this deck. You could maybe shave it down a little bit if you're expecting literally no steal, but once you've played with Ursula a lot, you realize how good it is in the deck. It is a role player that drains a lore, draws a card, quests for 3, is a 2/8, so it's very difficult to deal with a single thing, right? You can deal with it with a Maleficent Dragon, or you can deal with it like, you know, with a Be Prepared or a Tremaine. But if you're aware that those are cards that can interact with it, you can just wait, cast it on 8, and follow it up with an Olaf or whatever to protect it. But it can also sing Be Prepared. You'll find me very often with an Ursula in play and a Be Prepared in hand and maybe another Ursula in my hand, where instead of questing and just gaining the 3 lore, I will instead take the 7 ink tempo swing of singing the Be Prepared, playing an Ursula and, say, you know, a Maleficent or an Ursula and a Cusco, and then now all of a sudden our board is still awesome, but they have nothing on the field. If it is out of control, of course. If, for whatever reason, the board is not out of control, then you can just play more Ursulas, or you can commit things like the rabbits to the board, or whatever, right? Which you can't really do with other cards in this slot, because 7 is just such a special number in these decks, and there just really aren't other cards. Yeah, I sang B-Prep twice in the same game, and I was able to win, because it was sing B-Prep, play another Ursula. So, like, it does delay my questing of, you know, to gain 3 by a little bit, but if it stops them from questing, and it material-wise, like, Ursula draws a card, drains them lore, like, it's able to claw a lot of these things back at the same time, where getting that 7 extra ink really allows you to play more stuff in the same go, basically. Round 1 was... this was PS, and then this was Pop. It was a pretty close game in round 1, actually. We were able to use our double Tremaine in one of the games. We were able to use our double Tremaine to, like, shift onto Tremaine, bounce it back with a Fox or a Snake or whatever a couple of times. I think we cast 5 Tremaines that game in game 1, and then in game 3, we just Ursula Be Prepared a bunch of times until we finally ate through enough of the material in their hand that we could start going on the offensive. We went a little bit wider. It got to quest with the Ursulas, etc. And then we sort of raced their goats, just barely, but we did manage to get there. But the Ursula draining, you know, several lore was very helpful in that regard. I wish there was another card that was good enough for these decks that also drained lore a little bit, or could manage the opposing lore. It looks like we are maybe ready for round 3 here, or will be shortly. Currently showing as 6 points, which is good. I assume that the round is about up if they're asking us to refresh. Not quite. Yeah, I don't know. I like the deck a lot. I've been going back and forth on the number of, like, Maleficents, on the number of Cuscos, Teeth and Ambitions, like, some of the cards that I've shaved down a little bit on the numbers. I think you sort of have to cut Tremaines if you're going to be running Elsas a little bit, because you only have so many uninkables. It's the reason that I'm not playing things like the Pan's Shadow, and such like that, because they are all uninkable. You can only run so many, and I'm never cutting Rabbits because this is just the best card in the deck most of the time. And I'm never cutting Be Prepared, so this is already 8. If I want to run the full set of Ursulas, which I do, then we're already at 12, so we have room for maybe 5 uninkables. I would prefer to be at 16 uninkables, which is why we're 2-2. There was a time when I had shaved something else to go to 17, but I felt like 17 was a little bit much. We are 2-0 currently. We are 2-0, and we're waiting for the final round here. The final players to finish up so we can go to Game 3. Or Match 3, rather. Round 3. We 2-0'd it. It was Popsicles. We bullied them a little bit, as Purple-Red is often wont to do in that matchup. We were able to rebuy our Tremaines a couple times and eat a few of their things. They were playing a Maleficent Dragon, Hades heavy version of it. So a lot more on the top end, but generally you can sort of fill the board with these other little things. Fidget is okay. I have not fought against the mirror as much to really be able to demonstrate its effectiveness, but in general, in the mirrors, especially, the ruby purple mirrors, Teeth and Ambitions is a pretty crap card a lot of the time. It doesn't have any really favorable targets, and all it kind of does is just blast your own thing for 2 damage most of the time. So it gets inked or mulliganed a lot right away, and if you're especially on the draw, yeah, it's pretty bad in a lot of spots, unless it's really good, which is why I've cut it down to 3. It definitely is good in some instances, more so than most cards, because it is a little flexible, just dealing 2 damage, but now that it is a known card, Teeth and Ambitions, as well as the sort of Let the Storm Rage on, like, that 2 health number is dubious at best, right? If you're running it, it better be absolutely worth it. So since Fidget is only really to interact with Surfer, a lot of times this doesn't need to come down until turn 3 or turn 4. If you're on the play, this doesn't even need to come down until turn 4 if they play a Surfer. So a lot of times this Teeth will be inked already by then, hopefully. And this being a single answer card to Surfer Mini is very nice. Obviously, they just don't quest with it, which is fine. If these two just sit and stare at each other for a hot minute, that is a-okay by me. You can even start questing with your Fidget if you want, because a lot of times they don't have something available to challenge it. So you can gain your lore while they can't, right? So it ends up being a pretty good card to line up specifically with Surfer Mini. And in general, just this matchup. Obviously, in some other matchups that are playing Ruby, that are also playing Surfer, you could use it there too. But it is ink a lot of the time, similarly to how Maleficent is ink early a lot, or your 1-drops or your Mauis, if they're not good, end up being ink a lot. This is just ink most of the time when it's not good, which is okay. Not every card has to be stellar if it's a toolboxy card, which is what I think this is, because you need something to interact with Surfer Minis. Otherwise, on the draw, sometimes your opponent is just going to go Surfer, 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 and then you die. You die by turn 6 before you can even be prepared, which is not great, right? You need some safety valve to be able to hopefully mitigate that run out of just all minis all the time. And I think Fidget is a better answer to that than crab, because it doesn't require that you put your own mini into play first. And it also doesn't require that you play crab after they've already attacked and you have your Surfer mini in play to attack with your best questing card, and then also opens your mini then up to Teeth and Ambitions as well. So it's kind of a crapshoot all the way down. So round 3 is up. Let me refresh here. Okay, so round 3 is up. I have refreshed. I don't know who I'm fighting against. Let me double check. Wish it was easier to see who I'm facing, but it's fine. They'll work on that. It does show me, but I can't really necessarily bring up the information about them directly. But it's okay. So I'm just waiting for them to respond, and then I will... and then we'll get game 3 going. Alright. Okay, so let's go to our play, custom, boom, play. Alright, so now we are in game 3 of our 2024 New Year's Eve tournament. We'll see what this matchup looks like at the 2-0. Okay, so we have 2 Surfer minis. I think we get rid of these 2 and probably the snake and the goat. We can maybe keep the goat. Worst case is we can ink the goat. Given that we're on the play, I'm likely just going to jam a bunch of minis and see if that's good enough. Which, given that they just inked a Maleficent, probably will be. Sort of makes me want to keep this goat. Let's ink this and pass. Just in case these aren't good, then we still have this. We may end up inking this. An ideal setup is that we still have this goat in hand while we're doing this stuff, but don't need the Maleficent Dragon. We get on the Surfer plan. My guess is they're going to play a Maleficent this turn, maybe a Surfer of their own. They opt for a Surfer of their own, okay? We play another. I think we ink the mini. Quest for 2. So this would be where a crab would be pretty good for them. They'd be able to crab and kill our mini, and there's not much that we can do about it. But they would have to specifically have crab right now for it to really shine. It looks like they don't, which is good for us. I probably should have kept one of those 1-drops, actually, because Tremaine is generally a good out. We have a couple turns. Oh, we get an Olaf anyway. Never punished. Alright, let's do this. Play the Olaf. We quest and say go. Next turn I'm considering just playing the goat to put us to 14. And then they'll be dead before they get to 7. So they likely have teeth then, if their play is to attack the mini, which I'm fine with. Yeah, we're definitely playing a goat now. We attack with these, we attack with Olaf. I think I just play a goat and pass. We're just an aggro game. So notably they're playing Spellbook. Okay, so they do have the crab set up. So they can potentially take out 2 of our mini surfers this turn if they do have the Teeth and Ambitions, which likely they have. I don't know if it's going to be enough for them here, though. Because this is still 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the goat is just lethal already, so I don't think it'll matter. So they do have the Teeth and Ambitions. Interesting that they decided to sing it. I wonder if that's just for the spellbook. Yeah, okay. Makes sense. So let's do Surfer, Olaf, Goat. Goat. Say go. All gas, no brakes. And this is what I mean by sometimes this deck can just be an aggro deck. There are some games that you just like barf out Surfer Minis and then kill them, where if our opponent had a Fidget instead of a Crab, they could have played it on an earlier turn, and then it would have been able to stop us much more easily. Alright, we will go to game 2. Alright, so we are on the draw this time, so then that is not as often... That is generally not as successful on the draw. This hand is a little slow. We don't need this many foxes. I think we'll just get rid of those 2. Nice, so we do have the Fidget here, so we'll see if the Fidget is good in this matchup then. Or at least, in theory, we'll be able to demonstrate its effectiveness. Okay, ink an Olaf and play an Olaf. That leaves us the Mim Fox line as an option on 3. If we don't have something in play, we don't necessarily have that as an option. I usually keep Maui because it can be ink very easily, but sometimes if it isn't ink, it's still a reasonable play. I don't think I quest with Olaf. I think we get rid of Maui here and just say go. So the thing about Maui is, like, if it's really good, it's good, but it's not that good in this matchup. Like, it's okay, right? Whereas we can just... Oh, we'll see if the Teeth is good, or we'll see if the Fidget is good. Alright, so go. The Maui can just be ink, and sometimes this deck has a lot of uninkables, so you generally will need to be aware of that in your mulliganing decisions. And I want to keep rabbits, which are uninkable, so we need something as ink. And I don't really want to be inking foxes and friends on the other side if I can help it. So you have to be inking something. Okay, so they did have the Teeth and Ambitions. It's unfortunate. It happens. We are not under a particularly fast clock with just the 1. Given that they attacked here, I think we just bash this. I can ink Mini and just play Rabbit. And then say go. So they've inked a Goat, notably. Another Mini Surfer is unfortunate. The Tremaine will, in theory, be good next turn. We're not really racing here, so I think I just do this. Now, the question is, do I want to play a Rabbit? I think I don't. I think I want to play this. And then we can get rid of one of these Mim Foxes to play this Cusco as well. So hopefully they're not playing anything particularly exciting. So that we can Tremaine one of these minis. Well, I mean, likely we're going to get to Tremaine a mini. That's a good draw, actually. Given that, I think we ink this. We Tremaine. We actually can Tremaine and bounce the Tremaine next turn if we can shift it. Which will be pretty good, especially because we're keeping up with the lore now. We're a little bit behind just on the board as far as the lore, but we can gain quite a bit over the next couple of turns here. If we have to be prepared, we will. Like if they play another Surfer Mini or something that's, again, a bit insurmountable to deal with. It may not even be a bad idea just to blow up the board. They'll be at 15, we'll be at 11. And then we'll draw 2 cards. Yeah. Unfortunately, because we're going to have to bounce the Fox, I think that has to be the line. I don't love it, though, but it can draw us into Ursula's, which can help. We just don't have the time to deal with these otherwise, so... we quest with all this. We ink the Fox. We B-prep. Let them draw their 1 card. We'll draw our 2 cards. The Elsa's an okay draw here. Same with this. If we can get additional inkables, can be strong. So they're only at 6. If they play Ursula here, that's fine. Goat is less fine, especially if they have a bounce with it. So we have to kill this Merlin here. I don't think we have a choice. Tapping it is not a great idea. Which means that we just play the Tremaine. And then I think I just have to get rid of the friends on the other side. I really would have liked to have cast it, but if we Inkable into Maleficent, like that can clear something pretty easily as well. Okay, Ursula's fine. We have an Ursula of our own. Can we race them? If I play Elsa, we go to 12. Maybe, actually. There's also a world where they, like, play another Ursula or whatever. We get to sing, B-prep, and play Ursula. Killing Elsa here is unfortunate for us. But it's manageable. It is manageable. So we quest here, we B-prep. Do we play this Olaf, knowing that then we can't play Maleficent, but it puts pressure on? I don't think we need to. I think we can just pass. We're basically dodging goats here. And Spellbook. The Ursula does help. If they don't have a great play here, they just play Maui. That's fine. Because now we can play Ursula. And I guess we'll play the Mini to protect it from Tremaine. Suppose their hand is just double Maui, maybe. So I suspect that they have a Tremaine here. They have a Yzma. Okay. I will draw some cards. There's a goat. That's good for us. Sure hope they don't have another card that does something. They have a fox to bounce their thing. Okay. So I suspect that we have to play the dragon here. We can't play two things. This Surfer is unnecessary. The Kuzco could be viable, though. If they draw Tremaine, then it's pretty bad for us if we attack. But it has to specifically be Tremaine. What is the difference if I don't attack here to play around Tremaine and play around the Maui? So we can go to 17. I think 15 is about the same. 15, 16, 17. I guess if we... Okay, so I am going to quest. Because then we can be in Goat Lethal if we need to. Okay, not Tremaine. Disaster. Actual factual disaster. That's pretty good draw, though. Is that a good draw? I can Ursula... Fox the Ursula, kill the Mim. Then we have nothing on board. I don't really like that. 1, 2, 3. That puts him at 19. I think we know that that's Maui, so I think I just play Ursula here. Like, straight up. And then I play... So this is... 3 gain. Just play Cusco here and pass, and then we've got them next turn. And if they B-prep, that's fine. Like, the Ursula makes it so that they can't kill us with one goat. It is interesting that I could have played around this and thought about it. I opted for the little greedier, like, slightly greedier line of trying to play for the win. I don't know if I needed to, because we had the Ursula. We want to keep the goat in our hand, because we can close the game with the goat, but if the goat dies, and, like, let's say that they manage to kill the Ursula or whatever, then we're not in a great spot if we don't have the goat still. But this way we can bounce it or whatever. So it looks like we've got them here. So we draw an extra card, we draw an extra goat, which we didn't actually need. Alright, they'll send it back. We'll play a goat. We'll play a snake, bounce the goat. And then we'll quest for the Ursula. Alright. And then we'll take it. It is an interesting matchup. I honestly do think that the... So if we go and look at the... Let me report real quick here. If we go and look at our deck, right? Ursula is very good. It drained so many lore from them. But if we go and look at the Fidget play for a moment, right? So Fidget got killed by Teeth. But instead of our opponent developing another Minnie Mouse or developing like a rabbit that turn, all they did was blast Fidget. That was it. That was their whole turn. It's not awesome. Obviously, Fidget would be better if it was able to still contest. But it wasn't so bad because they didn't have the ability to sing this. And also, we were all gas, no breaks in game one, which helps in a matchup like this. If you don't have to play as many games by just stealing one with minis, it's really valuable. I think that's why this card is so good. I've seen lists not running the full 4 of these, and I think that's a mistake. That line where you are able to just, like, mini, you can do it against other decks, too. Like, it's good against the steel deck if they don't also happen to have like a 5-drop into Tinkerbell to double grab your swords or whatever, they can just get run over by it too, especially on the play. Obviously, a line like that is a little bit sketchier on the draw, because your opponent has more turns to deal with it. Yes, absolutely. I will keep it up for a moment. It's essentially just the mix of your 1-drops doesn't matter quite as much. You've got your 3 Teeth and Ambitions, because I think the card is good, but I think it's not as good in as many matchups as you would like. And it's pretty bad against the purple matchups, so 3 is a fine number, especially because it doesn't really do anything with your without a 1-drop. You've got Cusco. Cusco both smooths the draw a little bit, because it again doesn't require the 1-drop to play a 2-drop. It gives you additional draws, which is very nice, and there are some games where you just use Cusco to sing Teeth and Ambitions, blast it, and then you remain essentially card neutral for how crappy Teeth and Ambitions feels sometimes, but you do just get to replace it with the thing that you sung it with, and then you can still develop your, say, Maleficent on turn 3. So there's some lines where that's okay. We've got the Fidget as an answer to deal with the minis. I think 2 is an okay number. I wouldn't mind having an extra one, but the only real card that I could cut for it is probably Maleficent Dragon, and I think 2 is a good number for this Maleficent Dragon. This card is very good against Purple Steel. It's good in the mirror. It serves a similar role in that it's ink a lot, but having 1 in the late game is much better than having 0. So having only 1 Maleficent makes it so that you have a lower curve overall, but it's a little tricky. Obviously, we have the full gambit of Surfer Minis, because Surfer Mini's awesome. It really, that game 1 really shows you how good Surfer Mini can be, especially on the play. Yeah, the fact that this just gives us more things to do later to protect the Ursula. You can run more 1-drops, and that's okay too, but the 1-drops just aren't as good as Cusco. This draws a card. This is a similar effect, but it also draws a card. When it was 17 versus 10, I blew up the board and then I Ursula'd them. I don't think Spellbook has ever really been a great card. I think it's okay, but Spellbook doesn't do anything. Like, 1 Spellbook is just a 1 ink tax forever that is just worse than Ursula questing almost every time. So, like, if you think about Ursula, because this is sort of the same slot that Spellbook would have to occupy, right? Because it is... yeah, I B-prepped and then played an Ursula. They didn't draw a goat, and I kept it in such a way that they... Because I knew that the only card in their hand was Maui, and I dodged a couple of turns of them drawing, like, goat plus a bounce or whatever, and then I also managed to Ursula drain them enough so that a single goat off the top wasn't lethal before I was able to get lethal with the Ursulas and our own goats. Because I had double goat and double mim in hand to close out the last 3 or 4 if I needed it. I just played enough Ursulas that they lost. But okay, so let's talk about Spellbook. All right, so Spellbook, being uninkable, occupies one of these 16 slots. You know, the Tremaines, the Be Prepareds, the Merlins, the Elsas, the Ursulas. We only can put so many uninkables in the deck. So what's the cut for Spellbook? Generally Ursula, right? This is sort of the slot that I initially put Ursula in for. So if you think about how Ursula interacts against a Spellbook, okay, it drains 1 lore, so that puts them back a full turn. And if Ursula gets to quest even 1 time, it's the equivalent of Spellbook activating 3 times. And it didn't draw a card. Spellbook, to me, is similar to, like, a Cusco just, you know, questing unmolested. Just being able to stick in play and just turn sideways a bunch. You know, sometimes you'll get a Maleficent or whatever that'll do that, or, you know, if you play a Fidget and it just gets to quest a few times. It's only 1 per turn. Obviously, there are some games that your opponent just plays some spellbooks, and they have Be Prepareds for days and Tremaines for days just to, like, blow up all your stuff, and they essentially out-tempo control you by controlling enough of the board while they're getting their 1 or 2 lore per turn to close out the game. But if you don't allow your opponent to get crazy far ahead on lore while they're playing those spellbooks, you know, a spellbook at 7 or 8 really doesn't close the game fast enough most of the time. Like, the Mini Surfer, if this quests twice, is better than a spellbook. And it's inkable. The Ursula is better in way more matchups. Like, the spellbook is only good in this matchup, essentially. So that's why it ended up getting the cut, because it felt really narrow, like really narrow, for a card that was only good in the mirror, and there's just other cards that are also fine in the mirror that you can play. You can play the Surfers, which basically all the decks are playing now, but you can play the Ursulas and the Elsas. Like, the Elsa already races as fast, if not faster, tempo-wise, than the book can. Because you can just tap a couple things down. Sometimes you can force them to cast a Be Prepared, time walk themselves, you untap, play Ursula, you know, and a Kuzco, and then all of a sudden, like, what do they have to Be Prep again? You know, and that's why I think that having a bunch of low drops that you can play in addition to Ursula is very nice, because it plays around the Lady Tremaines. Though there are some universes where they can Tremaine and shift Tremaine, which we have demonstrated a few times today. I think that the Ursula is just so strong of a card. If you haven't played with a bunch of Ursulas in these bounce decks, try it, and then come back and see if you really want the spellbooks anymore. Because it just does everything. And running spellbook into, say, a steel deck that's playing Benja and is a tempo deck, you're essentially time-walking yourself to play it, unless you wait until super late. Yeah, assuming that Ursula gets to quest once, you know, it draws a card, so it replaces itself, it's very similar to, like, your Maleficent. And if you look at the way that this deck is constructed, this draws a card when it comes into play, this draws a card when it comes into play, this draws a card, this draws a card, this draws a card when it dies. This is a character that also kills something, this is a character that also kills something, and this draws a card when it comes into play. This draws 2 cards. Like, all of our things are just replacing themselves pretty consistently. And this is just a much larger version of these cheaper cards to do that. You know, questing with this twice, like, let's say that you Ursula, quest with it, and then you play Snake and replay your Ursula immediately. Like, what do they do against you then? There's really nothing but Be Prepared or sometimes Maleficent Dragon that kills it cleanly. Because even just a single Maui doesn't really do it. You know, there are some worlds where you, like, double Mim Fox, like you Fox, hit it, Fox again, and bounce it back, that works, but yeah, it's big, it hinders the opponent, it replaces itself a lot of the time, and there's some times that your opponent just, like, hasn't quest at all. So you have to be aware that it does not draw you a card. The way that this card reads, purple 7. So the way that this card reads, each opponent loses 1 lore. You may draw a card for each lore lost this way. So if you don't actually drain them for any lore, it can be rough, right? Because then you don't get anything from it. But there's some games against a Seal opponent that I would run it out just as a 2/8 3 lore, and that would be fine. I will probably bring something similar to Milwaukee. I ordered a playset of Elsa's a couple days ago. I didn't know if I needed a playset of them, but they were only like $12 or something. It is going to be unlikely that a crazy meta shift happens. I probably will end up, you know, I might end up tweaking some of the numbers. That's possible, certainly. There are cards that can shift around. That, yeah, and if your opponent goes big and around it, like, there's some spots where you can play this Ursula on a board where they have a Maleficent and a snake and a rabbit or whatever, and then they play a big thing, and then you just sing with Ursula, Be Prepared, and then play another Ursula. No, I don't miss it at all. So the thing about having that many 1-drops is if your deck is constructed in such a way that you don't have something like Cusco, you have the full 4 Teeth and Ambitions, if you don't hit one of your 1-drops, which even with 8, that still is a frequent occurrence, right? It's not every single time, but unless you're turbo mulliganing for these, you're not hitting them every single game. Like, if you don't have a 1-drop, you just wouldn't have any play until turn 3, because you can't play Snake, you can't play Teeth, which is miserable. Like, that was one thing about those older versions that I also didn't like, which is why I initially was looking for some 2-drop that was a functional way of having a draw that doesn't require you to do 1-drop Snake. I like 1-drop Snake as well as the next guy. You know, it brings your 1-drop back. You can put the Snake in your hand, or you can put the 1-drop back in your hand. You can ink it, like, it's very nice. It turns this into a 3/3, which is cool. But it requires that you hit a 1-drop on turn 1 exactly. Otherwise, it's just like you do nothing until turn 3, which in some matchups doesn't matter. Not every matchup is a tempo-based, but it's nice to have this, like, alternative option. The alternative option can also sink Teeth and Ambitions. You know, it does not have to be specifically the Snake. So, we'll talk about mulligan strategy in a moment here. Yeah, you're trying to help smooth out some of your early turns, because you don't always have the mini plus the Snake. Sometimes you just have a Cusco, and maybe you just don't even play your 1-drop. Maybe you just ink it, you know? Yeah, Baby Tremaine is nice, but the problem with Baby Tremaine is that it's uninkable, right? Again, what are we can only put so many uninkables in here, and if people are able to play around Tremaine, then it makes it worse, right? People are used to this card now, especially at the high level, so they're going out of their way to play around it. Hey, Sean, by the way. Like, as far as mulligan strategy for a deck like this, like, I'll always send back Elsas and Ursulas. I generally try to keep at least one Rabbit. Rabbit is an incredible turn 4 play, and when you don't have it, it kind of sucks. If you know what the matchup is, sometimes 2 Rabbits is fine. Be Prepared always goes back. Like, these 3, you always send them back. You don't really want them. Tremaine also generally goes back, so these are pretty easy send-backs. But since we have so many big, random uninkables in the deck that we love these cards, but they're terrible until later. And we have enough draw otherwise that as long as we keep enough inkables in our hand that we don't have to over-mulligan, it's fine. So, you know, you maybe keep a Merlin. Like, if you don't have the 1-drops, you can send Snakes back. It's not the end of the world. You don't always need to have a Snake early. Again, this card is better when you have 10 ink anyway. I like to keep a Fox because it gives you sort of a safety mechanism against things on the board, given that it's Rush. I like to try and keep a Maui because your fail case on it is that it's ink, and this is ink a lot anyway. But if your opponent is on a deck, certainly that the Maui is really great. Some of the steel decks, or even sometimes the Mirror, if you're on the play, where they happen to, you know, have some rabbits that they're tapping, you just Maui and bash it, and that's fine. And Maui's good, then it's great. If not, it's ink, and that's fine. Same with, like, the first Maleficent is ink. Sometimes I'll keep a Fidget. Play Draw changes it a little bit. Like, the Surfer Minis, like, you can only hold so many of them. Sometimes I'll send back 3s. You know, if I see my hand is a couple Surfer Minis and a Maleficent and maybe a Rabbit, I might send back the Maleficent because we have our card draw thing with this Rabbit, and we're likely going to do this on 3 instead. If I know the matchup and I'm on the draw, I'll probably keep Fidget. If I don't know the matchup and I'm on the draw, I'll definitely try to keep some of the 1-drops that you just don't know if they're playing aggro or not, and you need sort of some early interaction. I haven't played against a Lilo in a while, because they're kind of getting bullied out of the metagame by all the steel decks, which is nice for us. But it is still something to be aware of. You know, sometimes you do need a little bit of early board stuff. You could, in theory, send friends on the other side back if you don't have like a good, say, a Maleficent play on 3 or whatever to be able to sing it. Ideally, you don't want to be casting this until later. You'd rather sing it if you can. And you'd rather sing it with the Maleficent Sorceress, Rabbit, sometimes the Mim Fox if you used it to already hit something and then it's still alive. if you have to sing it with Surfer just because you don't have enough inkables, I think that's fine as well. But I would prefer to be questing with this if you can. Just because, obviously, getting +2 lore is really nice. But yeah, I try to keep enough inkables. Like, the early goats, I'll ink a lot as well. But I like to generally send these back if I have enough other inkables, because the goats are better, again, if you draw them later, similar to, like, the snake. Because obviously you want these in your deck instead of in your inkwell if you can help it, but sometimes it's not always an option. But I'd rather not be holding a hand that's just all foxes, you know, foxes and rabbits and whatever, and getting stuck having to ink a bunch of my fox mims. Because this card is much better if you're using it, bouncing your rabbit, you know, hitting something, that kind of stuff, rather than sending it to the inkwell. You know, the cards that you're looking to ink, depending upon the matchup, like are your 1-drops, your teeths. Cusco sometimes is fine to dump it in the inkwell if you have redundant ones. Fidget if it's not the right matchup for it. Maleficent. Sometimes you want to try to hold one Maleficent if you can, but if you draw 2 of them early, you know, dump them into the inkwell. You don't love it, but you can survive without them. You know, you have the Tremaines, you have the Be Prepareds, you'll live. I think the deck just requires a lot of practice overall, because the different decks that you fight against, sometimes you have to play a little bit differently. Especially play draw, I suppose, too. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just get the second best record and you just take your life equity and do something else, and that's fine. There's literally no shame in O2 dropping. Not at all. I would rather do that than like 4-2, right? Or 5-2. You know, get close and then donk out later, because then you at least didn't commit the time to it. But there'll always be more tournaments. Alright, let's see where we're at on time. It is currently 13 minutes left in the round. We had a pretty fast game. I don't know where people are running into these mirrors that take forever. Obviously, our game 1 was kind of turbo fast, but... yeah, unintent IDing and bubbling. Yeah. Fair enough. Matrix Sean, appreciate the follow. I don't know. I've been enjoying this deck. I know that it is kind of the bad guy, and I wasn't on it originally because I really did want to make... I really wanted to make something like this work. Oh, yeah, that's even worse. Unintentional draws. Ugh. Like, I've really tried to make a deck like this work, and maybe there's a world where you just run more aggressive, and then you do bells, like you turbo up, but it just... I don't know, it's rough. Same with decks like this. I think they're good. You know, different versions of this have been seeing play periodically, where they sort of require that you get Fishbone Quill on 3, and then they bully the purple-gray decks, and they bully some of the other aggro decks just because they have the Grab Your Swords and the Smash and all that, but I don't find that it's awesome. Yeah, whether you play the Elsas or not, I would definitely try the Cuscos, and I think 3 is a good number. I've tried 4, and it feels like it's a little too many. Like, I ended up settling on having the Maleficent Sorceress as a 4 of instead. Mostly because it can sing Friends on the other side, and because you draw the card immediately, there is some value in that too. Especially when you're trying to figure out, like, where your ink is coming from and that kind of stuff. And this card combos better with the Mims. Because you can sometimes use it as a crappy rabbit if you have to, or if you sing it, maybe you mim it back on 5 and replay it just to draw an extra card and then untap it. Hey Fish, appreciate the follow. About 10 minutes. I assume the next round will be up in maybe 15. It has been going to time a little bit. I don't know what we're looking at as far as draws. We can maybe take a look here at the standings. Great, we're going to battle No I'm Not. We're going to have to battle the mirror. We'll see if our mirror tech is good enough. There are a lot of 3-0s right now, though. How's our breakers? Bad. Unfortunate. We always seem to get pretty rough breakers. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Good luck at the 1K. Okay, so let's cut down here and see if we can find... Is there a draw bracket? I would think there is a little bit of a draw bracket. So there's some draws here. Weirdly, there's only one 201. I expected there to have been a second one. I guess if their round hasn't finished yet, or they played down, that would make sense. There would be a 101. Probably need to scroll down to those. Okay, so there's a handful of draws. I would assume if we get farther down, we'll start seeing a bit more of them. Actually, not too bad. They're at least finishing their games. A handful of draws, though. It's kind of rough to get stuck in the draw bracket. Unintentionally. Especially in this, because the games are so fast. It's possible that they're new players and things like that, but you really want to practice playing quickly, but still playing efficiently, essentially. Like, especially once you get into paper games end up being... They take longer, just in general. And they take longer because... there are a lot more physical, mechanical actions that you have to do. Tapping and untapping your inkwell, counting your inkwell. You know, playing cards, physically drawing cards. All of that takes more time. Even just shuffling your deck in between rounds will end up taking a lot longer than what you're going to see in Pixelborn, or really any digital client, where you don't have to do any of that mechanical stuff. It just is all done for you through the client. So if you're going to play in paper, any of these sort of more dirtily controlled decks or a little bit slower ones, you want to get used to trying to be more pointedly fast with playing them, which does take practice. It is not something that, you know, you may have right out of the gate, but it is something that is worth practicing, for sure. All right, we've got a bit of time. Can I see, like, what they did? No, we can't. Whatever. Okay, so we have a bit of time. I think I'm going to take a quick break. And then we will come back for the next round. Maybe grab a quick bite, and then in about, I would say, less than 10 minutes probably, we should be up for the next round. Thanks for that, Mr. Chip. Thanks for the follow. Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll take a quick break. Now is a good time while we have a little bit. And then I will see you all for round 4 of the 2024 New Year's Lorcana tournament. Well, we're back. It is not quite the round yet. Time has already been called. A couple minutes ago. But I believe that there is a small time extension for one of them, so we'll have to wait a moment. But I appreciate everybody for hanging out and watching either way. We can bring up the deck again here and take a look. I'm not necessarily... Like, I love this deck. I think it's very good. I wish that some of the other decks were a little bit more competitive with it, especially in a bigger tournament like this, but one of the things that I like to try and maximize, if possible, is my ability to make choices over the course of a long game and over the course of a long event. 9 rounds is a lot of rounds. That's going to be probably pretty conservatively like 10 hours. And I don't necessarily want to play, for example, an aggro deck that may just barf out its hand, get its board wiped, and then just have to sit there. I would rather try to play a deck that has generally a more mid-rangey feel or something that leans more into control. Given that this current card pool with only 2 sets only really has a couple of ways of really wiping the board in either Be Prepared or like Grab Your Sword, Tinkerbell, this kind of stuff to deal with go-wide strategies. It leads me generally more towards Ruby than most. Right. So I don't think that Steel is a bad choice necessarily. I actually think that this deck is quite good, and I think I'm going to play with this deck a bit more on like best of ones, because I think this deck is probably better than the Ruby in a best of one, because it has like really one terrible matchup in like blue-gray. Like some of the more optimized blue-gray lists kind of bully it. But I think given like a random opponent, this deck or some configuration of the Steel Bounce house with the blue fairies and with the Elsas and some of the other configurations are very good. I do think that this deck is good, but on the ladder, you know, especially because red-purple is like a 50-50, you have a lot more 50-50 matchups or ones that are pretty close that are fine to play those in a best of 3. You know, you have more opportunities to outplay your opponent. You are not necessarily just flipping a coin-ish for your Grandmaster points. You know, because the way that these points are gained, right, is you need 3 victories out of 4 games. So if you run into the mirror 3 times, you might just lose 2 of those over a small sample size. And that's not that unusual, but it's miserable if you're trying to grind for points, right? And the decks are generally pretty slow compared to something that is a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more tempo-based, kind of like the Steel flavor. So given that, it generally leads me towards picking the Ruby, and in this case, the Ruby Purple. Again, we sort of tried some different flavors of, you know, going big, playing crabs, you know, using the Gothels to combo out with Pabby, or just to sort of keep up with the 3 power, 3 toughness cards that a lot of these other decks are offering. And it just doesn't draw as many cards as Rabbit can. It doesn't have as much value engines, things that close like the Goat, that are also just like okay cards on their own. And it just, overall, the package that purple offers, I think Amethyst is just a clear winner here. The Rabbit is insane. I think that the Maleficent is very reasonable. I think that the Friends on the Other Side is very good. You know, all of these, like this package from set 1 was a staple in the control decks there as well. And in the aggro decks. It just is a very good, you know, you do this, you sing this, all of a sudden, you know, you've drawn a bunch of cards, you still put some material on the board. You know, this functionally being Pot of Greed, if you sing it, is just very, very strong. Just draw 2 cards for free is crazy good. And then you still get the same sort of top end, which, you know, is nice about this. This does have some weaknesses. Generally, its matchup against green-gray, which is usually the discard, is not awesome. You know, there are some times that I've ran into discard and they just, like, steamroll me. You know, I was playing a version of this Ursula deck that had a ton of Yzmas, which really wasn't playing the Elsas. It was a little bit lighter on Inkables. Running this over the Tremaines. It was okay. I didn't hate it, but it was a very early version of sort of the Ursula package that we're at now, where it's just a lot more streamlined. You know, you don't have as many bricky early turns. Your 6-drops are generally like play 2 things or play a Tremaine, more so than you know, playing a Yzma and pulling material off your board. So, I have enjoyed this deck quite a bit. I do think that this is another very good option, though. If you're looking to practice one, I think kind of pick one and then. Thanks for the follow, Adam. I think you pick one of these 2 flavors if you're looking to practice an Amethyst, and I would really invest in it. This deck I think is good, you know, or a version of a really fast deck. This or sort of the aggro bounce one, which leverages these, I think is fine. Maybe for a local, especially if you don't expect a lot of steal. I think a deck like this can do really well. And I think it's good at climbing the ladder too, mostly because win or lose, your games are really short. They don't take that long. You kind of just like play out your hand and then turn all of them sideways. Sometimes you turn them back upright with the LeFaux. Especially with Arthur, you know, this bounce combo, or, you know, Arthur plus the snake, replaying your Arthur for 5, you know, just to sort of get a bunch of lore down, and then you finish with the goat. Like a deck like this, it struggles against gray, right? Green gray, orange gray, they sort of blow up your board, and then you're kind of shit out of luck, right? But win or lose, it was over very quickly. And then you can just go next, and then you just bash that way. You know, you can get a pretty decent win rate with something like this and climb the ranks if that's what you're looking to do on the best of 1 ladder. Same with this. It can kind of do the same thing. You know, I never had a stellar win rate against the steel decks. You know, this was sort of the mirror. This was probably a discard deck or something. But, like, you know, it can beat red-purple. You just vomit out your hand and then kill them before they really interact. Same with what we did in the first game, where we just played a bunch of evasives and then turned them sideways, and they just didn't have an answer, and then they lost. But I think, yeah, I mean, it isn't really. You need a huge amount of games to really call it a bad win rate. But I have played from both sides enough. Like, if I go and look at my stats, so this season was 205 wins and another 58, so we'll call it 260 or so. And a lot of it was on red-purple, a little bit of purple-gray for this most recent one. I haven't played quite as much because of the holidays. You know, because I had been out there just hanging out with friends and doing that. But if we go back here, like, red-purple had an even higher win rate in the first part of it. Because now more people are just playing red-purple, so you're in that 50-50 spot a lot more. In Chapter 1, I played a lot of sort of the blue-orange and the orange-gray, like a lot of Rapunzel's and Surfer Stitches, like that kind of stuff. And towards the end, I was playing, like, I sort of started with the Ducky list that was just a lot of Inkables, and yeah, I mean, Green Purple was good there too. You know, it was just, you play aggressive things and you play aggressive things and you kind of just beat them with Kuzco's. Like, that works. That used to work a lot. Because the only real answer to Kuzco until it was turned sideways was be prepared for the longest time. Now there's a few more answers. Yeah, so we sort of started with the Ducky list. Like, this is where I ground a lot of it early, because just playing big yellow things into like Ariels and Tinkerbells into Surfers was good enough. Like, that was great for a long time. And then eventually we switched to doing the same thing, but with a little bit of ramp. Like, relying on Hades and Let It Go and such instead. Which I enjoyed that deck as well. I played a little bit of Red Purple, but I didn't really like the way that the play pattern was. Especially not on Pixelborn, certainly. Where you had to sort of loop brooms and that whole nonsense. I thought that was just, like, way too freaking slow. Just dirtily. Not really where I wanted to be in my life. Poor Red-Blue. It did its best. Yeah, it was really good. I liked it a lot. It could come back again. Hey, Diz, appreciate the follow. It's very possible for it to come back again, that blue-yellow is good. I think yellow is going to be very solid in the next set. Like, Rapunzel is always good. And will be in a deck of some sort. But we'll have to see how the locations shake out and what they end up changing. Because if there's benefits for, like, moving things around in locations, it could be that you try to play a ramp deck that just bounces around locations to gain lore or whatever. We don't really know. We know so little about the next set. We'll learn some more stuff eventually, but let me refresh the site here. It looks like round 4 is about up. I'm waiting for it to fully pair here. Maybe the site crashed. We'll wait for it. Yeah, there was some rumblings. It's like a duress or something. I don't know if it's a song or just a generic duress or what the case is, or what it targets even. Like, maybe it hits non-characters that can hit locations, or maybe it can't hit locations. I don't really know. But a card like that could make it interesting. And maybe there's just a location control deck where you essentially just play locations and board control cards, and then it's just control but with locations. It looks like the round is up-ish. It is not fully populated our chat yet, though, so we're going to wait a second. There we go. Ooh, we're on table 69. Nice. Alright, I will wait a second. Looks like they saw my message. So you should be ready to go here in just a moment. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that could be really good. Or it could just not do anything. Who knows? Like, there's so many things that you can add in the upcoming set that just make things like that not matter. Maybe there's something that draws you up to X number of cards when you play it. Like, who knows? We'll see. The game was designed with locations in mind, so hopefully some of the minor grievances that people have get sort of tamped down a little bit once the game is, we'll call it complete or more complete. If they had originally had locations in with all the stuff, like, it's hard when they're not there. So we get to be on the play. That's nice. This is good. Double friends, double fox is kind of unnecessary. Let's maybe mulligan 2. Oh, that's good. Okay, well, we'll see what we want to do here. I think we ink the goat. And I'm going to play Olaf and then say go. So we'll see what our opponent is playing here. So that does determine kind of how we want to participate the rest of this. So we have a Captain Hook. So we could snake to bounce it back. Let me think for a second. Yeah, I think given our hand, I think I'm going to get rid of Cusco here. And I'm going to mim this back, because then we have an inkable. And then I'm going to be looking to do like mini, or potentially the fox if it's good, into probably rabbit. And then we may end up using the mini to sing. If this is the discard deck, which I suspect it might be, then... Oh, no, this is just a different flavor of the steel deck. Okay. I can appreciate that. So we'll play our mini. I think I'll just quest here. Say go. If they want to trade their mim into my mim, I'm okay with that. Now that we have the minis here. Especially since we know that they have Captain Hook. Our mim is a little more awkward here then. So if they smash mini, that's fine. If they don't, then we're probably going to go all gas and just play the next one. Yep, that's fine. Yeah, I definitely think that RP is the way to go. So there is a world where I want to draw 2 with this one. This would be 6, 10, 14. Yeah, maybe we draw 2 with this first one. We're going to ink this. And then we'll play the second mini here. And then now we're just going to quest with these because we can play the rabbit. Hercules is an interesting card for sure. Okay, so let's play a rabbit. Draw. Just another friends on the other side, huh? I want to push lore, but I want to ink stuff too. It's really tricky. Maybe I can afford to just get rid of one fox and then hold these 2. And then next turn we can like sing one and Merlin Rabbit. And that should be enough draw anyway. Yeah, the Herc package is reasonable. Silver Ghost, appreciate the sub. Thanks for the Bezos bucks. Yeah, I found the Herc to be really good against random steal stuff. The same way that Cinderella, the 7-drop is. Just the resist 2 is very powerful against a lot of times what they're doing. So we do have to be aware that we can lose our cards to... like Beast Singing plus... Tinkerbell, or just double casting it. If they double cast it, that's fine. With this, I think I'm debating just killing one of these. I don't think I care. I think I'd rather just draw 2 cards here. Maui is a little bit more interesting, though. Maui we can punch with, maybe. Actually, Maui we can do next turn. We don't have to do that now. I think I'm just going to play another rabbit. We'll ink Fidget because it's bad in this matchup. We'll just quest and go to 10 and then say go. If they decide to sing and kill our stuff, we can also just Maui the thing or do a Be Prepared. Those are both options for us then. But we'll have a lot more cards to work with to make that decision. You don't always have to worry as much about Beast, like the initial push on Beast. Interesting. If they decide to double Storm Rage and then Swords, I think that's fine. We just get to kill the Beast then. Oh, maybe. We'll see what they do. This might just be Big Tank and then they don't have it. Which is also fine. Oh, they're just trading more material into our stuff? Okay, that's okay. I am A-okay with that. Oh, they quest with Beast as well. That is interesting. So, if I do this, go to 12, we can play Maui, we can take out the Beast, I can ink this Maleficent Sorceress, and then just put Maui back into my hand, and then say go. This means that they don't have the ability necessarily to just Tinkerbell, attack the rabbit, and kill the Minnie Mouse. So if we can get one more quest out of this, that would be huge. Because if they had swords, I think they use it last turn 100% of the time. With Tinkerbell. Like, they sing with Beast and Tinkerbell and they just wipe our board. And since they didn't do that, it seems pretty likely that they don't have it. It doesn't mean that they won't draw it, but it meant that they didn't have it that turn. And this way, they can't really even quest with Tinkerbell, because they know that we have this Maui that can just, like, smack this, and then we quest with everything. Okay, so they smash it. That's fine. Inevitably, they're going to clean up the board a little bit. If they quest with Tinkerbell, we're going to Maui it. We'll quest with the rest of this, I think. We could Mim Fox the rabbit as well. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what we do next turn. So we're going to go to 14. Well, we'll see what they play. Ooh. That's a good draw. But I would like to quest if we can. And if I play the Ursula, we don't really quest. That would be for 2. I think the Maui's just too free not to play, right? It's just so good to hit here. Now the question is, do I care enough about going to 14 that I want to just quest with everything? Do I want to draw 2 cards and then just kill this rabbit? I think draw 2 cards and kill the rabbit makes the most sense to me. So do this, hit the rabbit. Everything here has a lot of damage on it. Let them draw their card. Thanks, Geeky Cauldron. Appreciate the follow. I like this other Maui. I don't think that we need this Minnie Mouse. And I think I can play this snake to bounce the rabbit back to my hand. I know that we have another rabbit, but it untaps it, and then it leaves us a little less vulnerable to something like this. And then, like, the Mal hitting it. Because now we can just jam Ursula, and then I think we're just fine to win this game. I may even Ursula and just bash the Maleficent here. Elsa. That'll be good next turn. I don't think we need this. I think we Ursula, draw a card, and then start there. Goat is good. 13, 16, 17. I think I'm fine just doing this. They don't have Tremaine, we don't really have to worry about that. And then we can just say go. There's even a world where we sing B-Prep with this Ursula. And then we double Rabbit as well. That is another viable option here. Spellbook, sure. And a goat. I mean, that's good. Okay, so what are my options? We can sing the Be Prepared and play some stuff. That leaves us... They're at 15, 16 with the Spellbook. It's not great. I think it's probably better to play the Elsa and probably the Kuzco and then just try to push for victory instead, which means that we don't need this Maui. I think we just quest with the Ursula, go to 15, we play the Elsa, and we tap the Tinkerbell, and I guess the goat. And then we play the Kuzco, and then we say go, and then if they're able to deal with the Ursula, that's fine. If they're able to deal with the Elsa, that's fine. If they're not able to deal with the Kuzco and this, we've got them just with the goat. If either one of these gets to quest, we've got them just with the cards in our hand. We would need another card, though, to ink, because then we could Merlin plus the Be Prepared. It is looking okay here. Elsa is not awesome. It's not awesome for us. This would be 15, 16. So if we B-Prep, this is 17. Which we kind of have to here. Not what I want to be doing, but I don't think we have much of a choice. I think we have to be prepared here. We're going to do it before we make any of our other decisions, because you do get to draw a card off of it. And we draw a rabbit. Really awkward. I want this Maleficent to be good here. But I think we need to play something. I can't afford not to play something, so I think we have to play a rabbit, draw a card, and then say go. And we just have to hope that they don't have Goat Bounce. If they do have a Goat Bounce, they've got us, of course. Okay, so they didn't, so we've got them. Goat. Do we have them? We're one short. Yes, it looks like we're one short, but that's fine. Is it? I mean, it's not great, but there's nothing that we can really do about it, right? Oh no, wait, I can't do math. I'm just dumb. Never mind. I thought I had one less mana than I did. Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't intending on slow rolling. I thought I had it, and then I second-guessed myself, and then I'd had it anyway, so... It'd be like that sometimes. Alright, so they're on the play. This hand is not awesome. We get rid of these. I think I can get rid of the snake and the goats. And one of these. We're mulliganing a lot this time. Which could be kind of risky. Maybe we hold on to a goat for ink. That's fine. I'm not excited about this hand, though. I don't believe that these decks are particularly fast, so this can still be okay. Yeah, the other, they're both kind of mid. It's just an awkward draw. It'll be fine. Like, if they're on the hook version, it's not the end of the world. I think I can get rid of one of these. Let's say go. They might snake here, it's fine. We may not even play the mini. I probably will, just so that they have to smash it, but mini is a lot worse on the draw. I think I have to get rid of a goat here. And we'll say go. I guess because it's a 3-drop, it's fine. Just in general. It's a little worse being on the draw, of course. Like, mini is dramatically worse on the draw than it is on the play. Interesting that they inked their draw too. Oh, their hand is just flood the board, I see. Okay. Fair enough. How is this hand going to play out? I don't think we need goat. I think we need this, and then just say go. And then, depending upon how our opponent plays this, we may end up just foxing. But if not, we'll probably rabbit. We'll see if our mini lives. I guess we'll start there. Because I would like to play the rabbit to start drawing a little bit more cards. Fix what's going on here. Because if we can just start slamming Ursulas, usually our draw is going to be fine against the steel deck. But we need to get another 4 ink out of a hand that doesn't really have it to give. Okay. An interesting start. Given that we drew another Ursula, I think I have to ink the snake. And I have to play the rabbit here to draw. And then I think I'm just going to quest and pass. If they're spending time, like, trading Pascal into mini and then blasting it, I think I'm okay with that, given how aggressive they're trying to play their draw here. So they did find a rabbit. Likely, our next turn is really awkward, too. It's fine. We just need to start taking material off the board. I mean, it isn't a bad plan, depending upon your hand sometimes. You just have to play aggro. But they have a lot of not super aggressive cards that they're doing it with, just by the nature of the colors They don't have like the mini surfer to pull the full aggro line. If they attack with this hook, I'm definitely fine to just bash the rabbit into it and then fox their fox. Yeah, that's okay. I am a-okay with that. So let's do this. We'll fox our rabbit here. I will kill their Mim, and then I will just ink one of these Maleficents. And say go. Yeah, sure would be a shame if I sing B-Prep with one of these Ursulas. Like, their best play here is honestly just like a Sad Beast, because I can't deal with it for 3 turns. But if they're just playing more one-questers, it doesn't really... I don't think it does enough. Obviously, they have spellbooks, so they can still get us for sure. But I think the 4 Ursulas that we have in our hand should be enough. Okay, so they do have a spellbook, but I think we can still race with the Ursulas. Potentially, anyway. Do we want to play this Olaf? What does it get me if I play it? Nothing? Can let me double trade into one of these. Actually, it's probably fine. This is our last goat, but I think I'm going to play this. And then if we don't draw an Inkable, we still have the Merlin, and we can play the Ursula. We'll see. This is going to be a closer game than I'd like. Because they've drawn a couple of friends on the other side, which lets them sort of catch back up. Especially being able to sing it. I'm probably on board with bashing the Merlin and the Olaf into their Merlin Rabbit. Or just the Merlin Rabbit into the Maleficent, if that's an option. Okay, we'll see what they play for their 6. They play a Fox to bounce their Rabbit. I'm playing 2 Elsas. Okay, so they're untapping a bunch of their shit. So we go to 11. Okay, so if I hit both of these into the Mim Snake, then I draw a card, and then I just get to start playing Ursulas. But this would save me 1 lore at the expense of 2 of my own. But the 1 lore I think is more precious to me right now. So I think I'm okay with it. One and 2. Alright, we just don't need this Maleficent here. This Cusco could be valuable later. So let's play the Ursula first. Tremaine is good as well. So ideally they run out a handful of things, and then we sing with Ursula, and then we slam an Ursula. Just because that lets us clean up the board, but still have an Ursula in play. And then we can hopefully use this Tremaine to try and clean up something else later. Okay, so they're going to go to 13. That's not insurmountable. Alright, I guess Cusco really isn't going to have an opportunity to work here. So let's sing B-Prep. They draw their 1 card. We run out an Ursula. Draw another card. Say go. The full aggro plan very well may get us this game. Such is the nature of being on the draw. If they decide to play... Yeah, it's 2 Elsas. If they decide to play something big and only 1 thing, that would be favorable for us. But if they play 2 things, it's a little awkward. We can't Tremaine shift Tremaine. which is unfortunate. Speed 4. What an awkward hand. I think I'm just going to play an Ursula here. We'll ink a goat. Quest with Ursula, say go. This is going to be a tough race if we don't draw an Elsa. We have a line where we can, like, double Tremaine. But I don't even necessarily know if double Tremaine is going to be enough to be able to interact with what they're doing before they are able to sort of roll over us. Fidget. Well, Fidget's not it. Fidget's pretty easily ink here. So we have an option. We can Ursula hit here, Fox hit here. Tremaine, they probably sack like the Merlin Rabbit. Jeez, I don't like that at all. I can't just Ursula here though either, because that doesn't do anything. It's a tough turn. I kind of need to be prepared like right now. And I just don't think that we have it. We do not. So then... are we dead anyway? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we're dead anyway. Okay. Alright. They got me. It happens. Our hand of 4 Ursulas was a little too many. Like, if we just had something else to interact that wasn't just only Ursulas, I think we would have been okay, but that's just too many Ursulas. Because it's just too many do-nothings for too long. We never really had time to play them. Teeth isn't great. Do we ever want double rabbit? Maybe. I think 1 rabbit is fine. Okay, this hand is fine. Yeah, it's hard to double spell when all you're drawing is 7s, you know? But that's the deck sometimes. There's a Pascal. We may end up playing Fidget this game, weirdly. I think I'm still supposed to ink the goat for a turn. Fidget's probably a little awkward against the Pascal. On the spinner? Which spinner? This guy? He's fine. We played him once where I was supposed to. The fidget spinner, yeah. I played him once where I was supposed to and it did okay, so I assume that means that he's fine. Oh, they decided to bounce the Pascal? Oh, that's great for us. Sure. Yeah, get this thing out of here. Let's just quest here. Put the thing back and say go. I don't really want to play the fidget in this spot because it is a very awkward card in that if they just untap and Rage Against a Storm it's miserable, right? We don't want that. We've been doing okay in the mirror today, yeah. We are currently 1-1 against purple steel. So here, I think our play is to draw 2 cards. We'll ink fidget. Play rabbit. Yeah, this one is steel, not the mirror. But we have a lot of Ursulas this time, and we're on the play, so puts us in a little better position than we were in the last game. Previously they were able in game 2 just to play a lot of things to the board, and then they just did a go wide until we cleaned it up, but it wasn't quite enough. We drew all 4 of our Ursulas before we could even play them. The reason that I didn't want to play the fidget is they have a lot more answers to fidget in steel. If they just like do the song and then we lose our fidget for nothing, and then we're just shit out of luck, right? Yeah, it's only really good in the mirror because if they're going to teeth, at least they still do 2 damage to their own shit. Whereas that is not always the case from this side of it. I think I can get rid of the Cusco. I think we're going to play one of these Mauis. And we're just going to clean up the board a bit. And then we're just going to lose to a shifted Tink, and I'm fine with it. I don't really know what we can do about it. We'll just get it with the other Maui. Alternatively, we could Mim Fox the rabbit, but then we're just like Rabbit Glut. Yeah, it's weird. Like, we're getting lol-kecked with a Tinkerbell anyway here, I think. But then at least we have the Maui to follow it up. And we'll just get rid of the Mim, because we'll still draw a card off the rabbit, too. We just bash here. I guess we bash here to make the Tinkerbell take more damage. I don't think it really matters, though. It's kind of the same. But it's likely that they shift Tink here. It's not even that big of a blowout. It's just a little annoying. There's a world where I just, like, don't attack with the Mim here, actually. That might have been better. Honestly, if I knew that this was their line, I shouldn't have attacked with this Mim. Because then they can't do this line. So that might have been a bit of a mistake. Not anything terribly critical, but it was not as good as it could have been for us there. Because we could have made it so that the only way that works is if they hit into the Maui just for 1 lore. I think that would have been worth. It's fine. We have another Maui. Takes out 2 cards. It's fine. In this case, I think we get rid of the Cusco, favoring the Maleficent, but we're likely just going to start slamming Ursulas here anyway. I'm glad that they didn't play a Sad Beast, because I think that would have been more difficult for us to deal with. Yeah, this hand is a little bit more functional than the last one. That's certainly true. Here's an Ursula. Oh, that's a good draw. Good job, Maui. Yeah, so here's to let the Storm Rage on. See what they play here. Whether we want to just jam another Ursula, or if we want to go a little bit wider and clean up their rabbit. Given that they played an Ursula of their own, I kind of want to just... I kind of want to just play like some draw stuff and kill their Merlin. I mean, obviously we're questing here no matter what. But I want to get this rabbit off the table. We can do it this way, I think. Prep is a good draw. I still think this is correct most of the time. We attack into the rabbit. I think I can just get rid of this Maleficent now. Since we drew another rabbit, we're just never casting it. Do this. And say go. And then I have the line where I can sing B prep and just play the other Ursula too. But if they just choose to attack with the Ursula or whatever, then I can play... I can use the Maui and the Mim to bash it as well. Ursula, very good this game. I almost hope that they quest just so that I can make sure that all my other Ursulas are live. We can't underestimate them. They do have spellbooks too, so... So they kill the fox, that's fine. I mean, we can unironically, like, hit this and Maui it too with the Ursula instead of questing. It's, like, not that miserable. Like, I want them to always be playing from behind because it makes their Elsas a lot worse too. If they play a Sad Beast here, I'm definitely just going to be prepared, though. Rabbit. Okay. It's a lot of be prepareds. Let's consider our options. We can let them go to 9. I don't really like that as an option. I wish I had like a little bit more ink. If we hit this for 2 and Maui it, that'd leave us with enough that we could either play Friends on the other side, or we can ink Friends and just play the rabbit. Can ink the snake too. I'm actually fine with this, I think. I think I'm just going to cast this. And we can get rid of the goat. We can get rid of the first goat, at least. Because we have a lot of draw, and we have the Be Prepared still. And if they're going to hit this and then fox it, I think that's still okay. I don't love it, because it lets them get it off the table and just replay their rabbit, but... it is not as bad as it seems. I almost wish I played the rabbit, actually, so that I could have sung with the Maui instead of having to attack into this garbage. That's interesting. What if we just get rid of the snake and play this Be Prepared? What does that look like for us? Like, play Be Prepared into mini. That doesn't seem that bad. I don't really want them to have the beast draws, because it hasn't seemed like they've drawn a lot of cards. Obviously they have the rabbits and stuff, but they have to replay those in order for this to work. And just playing 2 rabbits is just not nearly as good as playing an Ursula. Okay, we quest. Ursula. I think I ink the Olaf, and then I pass. I probably should have played that rabbit. That was a mistake. I miscounted my ink again. Yeah, I had already clicked past before I saw it. They're gonna bounce a rabbit here. Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's actually a good draw. It sort of salvages my mistake last turn. Not entirely, but... because this is 8-12, which I have. We can rabbit first, though. And then we can Elsa freeze Elsa, and... I guess the fox, or the Mim, rather. If they Elsa us again, it's going to be unfortunate, but we can deal with 2 Elsas then with a single B prep. And we can even protect one of our other things if we want. If they don't actually sing and they just deal with one of them, we can even potentially, like, bounce one. We'll see what they do. So they do have another Elsa, which is a bit unfortunate. And guys, they opted to smash. See what we draw here. Another Surfer Mini. So I have a few choices. I'm likely going to have to be prepared here. I'm just debating on whether or not I trade this snake for one of these two or not. Because we can B prep and then like play out another Surfer or play out the rabbit. Let me look at my... So we've only used one Ursula, one Elsa. I think I'm fine just doing B prep here and then drawing our card from the rabbit and then seeing what that gives us. It gives us a Cusco. It's kind of interesting, actually. Makes me want to do this a little bit more. I'm likely going to have to use this to draw some cards. They probably only have one more Elsa. Most likely, anyway. I have not counted their smashes. How many swords have they used? None. So their whole hand is probably full of swords. Alright, we'll do both of these, and let's draw some cards. Tremaine. Tremaine bounce Tremaine is really good. But so is, like, playing Rabbit and replaying it this turn. Can we ink this? We could. We could replay Rabbit and play the Mini. But that plays really heavily into double or Tink plus, which I don't really want to do if I don't have to, and I really don't have to. I can probably just play the Rabbit. Interesting. That makes me want to... We're going to draw 2 cards. I'm trying to see if I want to, like, mim, say, the Rabbit again. How many rabbits have we gone through? We have 2. Oh, this is our 3rd rabbit. I think that the Tremaines, this is 6-12. We need 2 more to double Tremaine with the Fox. I think I'm just going to pass here. We are going to need to play a little bit faster because we only have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to stop tanking so much. I don't think this game is going to last that long, but I suspect some double swords are going to come down here. Ideally, we don't have to be prepared on our turn. Tremaine would probably be one of our better draws. Assuming that this is all they have left. Oh, Tinkerbell is rough here. Because now they can swords as well. Oh, they don't have the swords. Man. I'm always really worried about stuff that they just don't end up having. I mean, they have them in their decks somewhere, but we also have a bunch of Ursulas in our deck still. 2 more and an Elsa. We're going to have to close out the game before they get their spellbook online, though. They smashed our rabbit. Okay. And then we get to draw a card from Kuzco as well. So with 14, we can play this twice and kill their whole board without having to B-prep. We can even keep our snake. No, we can't. We can't. We just do this. We do that. We play the Tremaine. Sack a thing. Okay, we make them sacrifice the thing. Play our snake. Bounce the Tremaine. Play the Tremaine. And then pass. Interestingly, this Teeth can be very good. Because we have the Fox as well. If we're able to use this Teeth to kill a thing and then remove what's being protected, to be able to replay the Tremaine and kill something, that'd be very good. Hey, Warlock. Thanks for the follow. Elsa is pretty likely here, I would think. Hercules, sure. Alright, so I quest. I play this. I bounce the Tremaine. I should have bounced the snake and then bounced the Tremaine. That was a mistake. I actually think I just play the Tremaine again. No, I don't want to play into swords. No, because they could have sacked that, is the problem. Because we have to play the Tremaine first, so if they sack the crappy one, then we're in a bad way. So they swords. So they double swords us. Like a minute and a half. We're gonna have to B-prep here. We really need to draw like Ursula. Ursula would be our best draw by a lot. Please pass and not play for the draw. Alright, that's a great draw. Ursula. Pass. We don't really need to ink anything else. They do have an Elsa in here still, most likely. Though if they're playing Herc, it's possible that they're not running 3 Elsas. Herc plus a goat. Plus a Mim to bounce the goat. Well, that is a good draw. We'll just play double Tremaine. We'll quest for 3. Say go. Do they have any more swords? They could still double swords us. So I think I just pass, because we may need to use this to finish. So it looks like it's going to be time on their turns, so we'll get 3 turns. One, two, three, four. Yeah, right? Okay, so this is turn 1. We can afford to rabbit and draw. Oh, that'll do it. Nice. What a game. Well, we made it work. Tough matchup, though. Does anybody remember if we played first? I think we did. Did we have the play? I don't remember. This thing, 3 games. I was on the play, okay. And then we won, then we lost, then we won, right? Win, lose, win. Okay. Alright, so we are 4-0, which is a pretty good start, I would say. Deck's been performing pretty well. I think that the 2 Tremaines is, like, the minimum that I would play. Because, like, it's so good sometimes when you shift on it. We had some really fortuitous top decks, a couple in a row. Obviously, we were drawing extra cards with the Ursula's and whatever, but it was a good run out. I called shot from the best card that we could hit there, which was B-Prep plus Ursula in one go. It was kind of really the only way that we were going to be able to close that game out in a reasonable amount of time. Especially if they had Elsa in hand, that would have made it really tricky. Because I think we only had like 1 goat left, maybe. But yeah, the purple steel matchup is very close, but it does feel like the Elsa helps a lot. The full set of Ursulas helps a lot. Even the Cusco's didn't feel terrible because we just like they were doing stuff. Which one did I misplay? Oh, where I didn't have like the second rabbit in play. Yeah, it's possible. It could have given us 1 more lore earlier. Or like a deeper draw, because we would have been two draws deeper. Faster, but, you know, who knows. It helps that we don't get blown out as much. You know, we just have more material for later. It's not as bad when they don't have Tremaine, right? The Tremaines make it a little tricky. Because if you're not running out the cards when they do have it. Yeah, I assume that basically their whole hand was swords. Let me double check my points. I'm at 12 points. Neato burrito. There are so many 4-0s. How are our breakers? We are up to 58%. So they're not awesome, but they're better than some. Yeah, the purple steel matchup is pretty tricky, though. I think that deck is very good. My problem with Yzma, in specifically the ruby flavor of this deck, is that I don't want to be giving them cards, and I don't want to be pulling my shit off the board either. So, like, there's never a spot where I'm like, oh, I really want to... Oh, we're still on the commercial break. I'll wait a second. But in general, I think Yzma is better in this deck. I think Yzma is good here, given that they need very specific answers to stuff, and a lot of their cards are just like trying to draw more cards. I think it's fine in this deck. Got a couple seconds for the break to end real quick here, and then I'll talk about it. Okay, so you should be back, I think. Okay, so the reason that I don't run Yzma in this list is I think it's just worse here than it is in the Steel deck by quite a bit. I don't want to be pulling material off my board. Like, it's ink a lot. And in the spots where it's not ink, generally it could have just been a different card. In this case, like, we have 2 Maleficent Dragons, and the other cards that would be in that slot are like the Fidgets or the Cuscos. It's just a cheaper card that can also be ink. But there are some games, like against Purple Steel, Maleficent can be a house when you're at 11 or 12 ink, because you play it and then like you bounce it back and do it again. And that can be very good against opposing Elsos and Ursulas without them drawing stuff. This deck doesn't give a shit about Steel decks that wheel, really. I haven't really found wheel decks to be a huge problem for this. They can get nut draws, of course. That's always a possibility. You can never really rule that out. But in general, I would say that this deck doesn't struggle a ton. You know, you have Be Prepared and you have Ursula already. Like, you don't really need Yzma in that spot. You just do these and these. And if they somehow manage to wheel all of your Be Prepareds, sometimes they get you. I just don't think those decks are really that good right now anyway. I think they're okay. The blue variant, certainly, we don't care that much about. I don't think the blue variant is good against us at all. Blue Steel, especially with the Elsa. Like, I just don't think they really have a good answer to Ursula that doesn't ramp us into these. Yeah, I could see their nut draws like Yzma being more playable, for sure. But I mean, there's sometimes you just lose to their perfect draw. That's why we're playing best of 3. You know, they get that so rarely. They get it almost as often as, you know, if we're talking about like Steel Song or whatever. Their nut draws happen as often as their non-functional draws. So it's like kind of whatever, you know. But so far, I think the deck has been pretty good. We are currently 4-0, which I didn't save. We fought against 2 Purple Steels, a Popsicle, and an RP deck so far. It has performed pretty well, I think. So I'm going to wait a couple minutes for the next round, and then I will see you